All right. Hello, everyone. This is Justice with Jax, Season 4, Episode 3. Here we are, April 24th, 2026. I am your host, Jacqueline Armendariz Unzueta. You can call me Jax. And as usual, quick update here that we're going to share is the case that this podcast is about, Armendariz versus City of Colorado Springs. It has been 998 days, or 2 years, 8 months, 24 days, that the case has been in U.S. District Court. It is a civil rights case that we use this podcast to provide community updates and so much more. And you are so lucky to be listening to this episode, honestly, because I have one of the coolest people in the community, a phenomenal human being who I'm going to let introduce themselves, please.
Thanks. No pressure. I'm Hannah Ramsey. She, her. I just am a part of the community. I don't know that I would specify any affiliation specifically, but we do work. I volunteer with CORN, Colorado Rapid Response Network, with CIRC, Colorado Immigration Rights Coalition, and I just follow my fiance around because she's
Shout out to Erica.
She's phenomenal. Best person.
She is phenomenal. You both are a unit that makes me believe in like the future and beauty of the world. I love hanging out with couples who it's like, oh, they're healthy and they're in the community and they seem happy.
Well, and I just appreciate because there's so much that we'll just be talking. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to get involved. And she's like, the action, like, let's go get it. Let's go find a way. And
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So I just appreciate that partnership with her because I'll just dream and then she's like, well, let's find
how we're going to take the
action.
We're going
to do it.
That's what makes you a good unit. Yeah. And so humble, as many of the guests on this show are. So I will only add that, and we're going to get into this, which is why I feel so grateful to have this guest. But Hannah was also a key lead volunteer on the campaign that I just led with the community, our committee to elect Jacqueline Armendariz Unzueta, also known as Jax for EPCO. So we have some news updates there, and we have some news updates on the case, actually, which I will briefly share because, you know, the idea of this show has always been to be an educational vehicle and kind of capture the lived experience, a surreal experience of, like, what does it really mean to be a person whose constitutional rights are violated, and now it goes to court, right? Yeah. And it's a different level of court that, you know, it's not where you go when you get a speeding ticket or anything like that. It's pretty surreal. And so right now, we're still in wait mode because if you remember, listen to the last episode, we had a very good update, which is here's what the ACLU said is that federal appeals court finds City of Colorado Springs and local police cannot avoid responsibility for unlawfully searched activists. Pretty clear that they have accountability that the courts have ruled on, right? Yeah. So the process that we have talked about before is it's a lot of hurry up and wait. The surreal element of it is you're like waiting for this court date and then you go into a courtroom and you listen to a lot of people talk and you can't forget that, you know, the things that they're talking about and the things that are, you know, on paper with regard to the case, those are actually people's lives. Yeah. And that's why, you know, for me, I've felt so compelled to do this show. So this story is told for the community because I'm not doing this for my health or my individual well-being, let me tell you. So right now, we are waiting for a couple of deadlines because, as I've mentioned before, in this sort of David versus Goliath, right? Goliath being the government, they are the defendants in this case, right? They have had, you know, some accommodations granted. And so last time we were talking about the upcoming deadlines. And so one of them has been extended to May 27. That's going to be, a deadline for what's called a petition for rehearing, which they have the option to ask the 10th Circuit, which is just who did the ruling in February, we need you to rehear this case. And then it'll be up to the 10th Circuit if they choose to file that petition. And then this is a fun one. I know. Hannah is shaking her head.
Well, it's funny because you think of a right to a fair and speedy trial, and then years later you're like,
this is years, and it feels like justice delayed, right?
Absolutely. Always. Yeah, every time. And that is the justice system. But it is...
Well, and I call it the legal system now.
Fair.
Right?
Yeah. No, good. That's right.
feel like I've earned that right after what my experience has been. Thank you. Yeah. And then, so there's another deadline on deck too, which is so interesting. And again, the educational vehicle part of this, because first of all, we remarked that, the Gazette doesn't give a fuck about a case that has reaffirmed police accountability. Mm-hmm. So they reported on the L that we took along this process back when, and I haven't seen them cover that this verdict came out. Shocking, surprising. Yes. So really, I feel like this podcast is going to a level of detail that traditional media outlets wouldn't. And unfortunately, in our case, knowing we live in a conservative community that we are actively shifting towards more progressive politics, we'll say, is that our media ecosystem is not, we'll say, equipped to give a shit about this type of media coverage. So I do it myself and with my community. So the June 10th deadline, check this out, which is the surreal piece of it. And because the case is ongoing, I have not talked as much about the Supreme Court and what I think about it. Yeah. So this is the surreal part, that June 10th for this case, the defendants have a deadline where they would need to choose whether to file what is a petition for writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court of the United States. I had to look up how to pronounce that word.
I was going to say,
what is that? Yeah, I mean, in some, it is an option that the defendant has to say, hey, Supreme Court, we want you to hear this case, which is terrifying to me, actually, and I will leave it at that.
This particular Supreme Court.
This Supreme Court. And if what I would add politically, there are conversations around stacking the court. I think given our timeline, we should strongly consider options to address the concerns with the current Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think it's shown us what we knew in the back of our mind all along it could turn into. Like
what everyone was afraid
any
of.
System in our government, it's just being exposed. This administration
Truly.
And these judges are exposing what, in theory, like it could happen, and now we're like, oh.
Well, that's what people don't self-regulate, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the painful parts that people are noticing is like, oh, there's a lot of discretion here, and when people who are bad actors get into powerful positions, like just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. And that's like a mantra for the Trump administration, right? This administration has done everything it can and beyond because it can, and we have realized some of the faulty nature of our systems with regard to that tension, right? I mean, authoritarianism is here. It's here. It's not like we're not creeping to it. It is here.
No, we're in it. We're experiencing it. We're seeing it, and trying to use the systems that are self-regulating, like Supreme Court, self-regulating, self-accountability. Which, what is that? Yeah. When you're the one taking money, like it's crazy.
And reporting around the Supreme Court and what their connections are and conflicts, right? So we'll see what happens with those deadlines. Okay. So that's really one of the biggest updates of where we're at. And so as we've mentioned, part of why this podcast exists is to be a vehicle for the narrative of this case and the community voices who were either impacted or have an opinion on it, because this is something that, again, bigger than just the organization or the person involved. So, Hannah, do you remember hearing about this case? Like, you might have even heard about it, like, before you and I met.
No, and I think that's why this podcast is important, but also when you go back to the coverage, I didn't, and I feel like I should have known more about this case before meeting you, because it can have a huge impact on local community. And when we, especially as an organizer, when people are really nervous with protests and how police are going to respond to that, that was how I was feeling before I knew about your case. And now I'm like, oh, I understand everyone's hesitation to even when they have a right of way to even be, and now I get it.
You mean a First Amendment right?
Oh, that
to political speech. Yeah. Precisely. No, well, thank you for, sharing that, because, I'm always curious, because I have an incredible, community support network, and, I count you among it, and I've met, people along my life in different parts. And so there is very much a pre-case sort of part of my life, and then post-case. And I think I've talked about it before, but one of the reasons that, I started going by Jax has to do, and I also took my mother's maiden name, so that's the Armendariz Unzueta part, was a lot around finding ways to heal with what happened, because the attack on my home and who I am, like being accused of, being, I guess, investigated because they wanted to know if we were domestic leftist terrorists, because we were people who were doing food pantries and marches for housing rights, and in my case organizing community bike rides, like
right
all the absurdity of that, right? Like it might fuck with your head a little bit. So.
Yeah, especially when you're like, this is what you decide to go after, and this is what you decide to criminalize when I'm showing up for my community. And it may we may not align 100%, or you might not agree with XYZ, but that's the beauty of like living in
a democracy,
a free nation.
For the cranky Republicans out there, like they listen to the show, fine, a democratic republic, because guess what? I don't want a fucking republic without democracy. So we are a democratic republic.
Yes, fair enough. But it is so important, Jax, because I wrote down all these things of like what this could do, what this could change, like you winning the case, right? Because it's like them feeling so entitled and not thinking anyone would dare hold them accountable. And then at this point, they're like, oh, just take a settlement, because, if they end up offering that, because at this point,
it's processed.
They're like, hey, take this because we don't want to stop the way we write warrants.
Because we don't want to be accountable for our practices.
Yeah, we've been in this space, this city, so long that just allowed us to behave poorly. Because, and I think it's also like, this is my issue now, and we may get into it a little more with like the unaffiliated stuff, but the idea of what Colorado Springs is without actually walking through and meeting the people. There's like this idea, and you'll feel it when people come or refuse to come down from Denver, because like, oh, Colorado Springs.
Oh, our reputation is in the shitter in a lot of ways, right? And it has been for a long time, and arguably it's unfair.
It is unfair. And when you meet community members, you're like, no, that's not reflective of what we hold dear and the way we walk things out here. And we may be climbing an uphill battle with a lot of systems in place, like the police that we have in place, the I think plants that are here to keep us kind of in line. But I think a lot about your case being like, it should be known more in the community, because it's pretty pivotal of how we talk about how organizers, activists can interact with police, but also just how they can exist in this space and feel like they're actually getting to participate in their
and not be criminalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should not be criminalized for using your First Amendment rights, which is part of what this case is about, right? Yeah. And thank you, Hannah. Like, very well said, because I think what you're naming relates to something that we see now, even like on a macro context, which is like, who is controlling the narrative, and like, it's terrifying, right? Because in our country, like we have like media conglomerates, and they are tied to this current administration, right? So that's where efforts like this podcast to keep speaking independently, I'm very passionate about it, because again, to that point, I think Colorado Springs has been affected by that type of strategic approach, where there is media control here with like institutional and corporate, what little of the ecosystem we have left, right? Because we saw our left weekly alternative go away, right? In the last few years. And so with that, I don't think it's in my head noticing that the Gazette has chosen not to put attention on this case.
Yeah, they don't want to even tiptoe out of line.
Well, because then you're talking about police accountability, right? Like, it's kind of like the concept, like, don't think of an elephant. But then you're immediately thinking, so don't talk about it, because then people won't think about it.
Right. Well, and this is where my frustration comes both for who I work for. It's hard for me when I support my company because I feel like they do walk out the values a bit more than others, but there's other decisions they're making. I'm like, now is not the time to just be like, oh, we'll just wait it out and see what happens in 2 years after.
No, we can't.
What
just
are we doing?
Chill right now.
Yeah, and that's what
no chill.
No, and that's what media is doing. And I'm like, first of all, the
White House press corps dinner is taking place tonight. I am so excited. You and I will nerd out about it later. Okay,
absolutely. Well, and on that note too, just today is the anniversary and the memorial for Virginia Giuffre. So they're out there right now, and it's kind of aligning today with the Correspondence Dinner. So that'll be
please dig in deeper, because if people don't, it doesn't immediately click. Virginia is a very important figure that has local ties to the community. She does,
yeah. So she came out, one of the first survivors to come out against Epstein and really strongly against formerly known as Prince Andrew. She really pushed that, and she died by suicide last year in Australia, and her family, her brothers, live here in Colorado. But her youngest brother lives here in Colorado Springs with his family. So Sky and Amanda Roberts, very vocal. They're on the media a lot.
I have seen them on CNN.
Yes, CNN, BBC, they're kind of all over.
Yeah, they're
but
international.
They live here, and Virginia wanted to move back here, and she wanted to make this her community and her outreach and her pursuit for justice for women. And so it's very important for them to carry that on, but they're stuck in a stage of grief with what this administration does. They can't move
Congress
forward.
Is not helping.
No, and they're pretending, right? And they meet with people and they have these conversations. I mean, Jeff Crank refused to meet with them, and they live right here in his district.
Shame him, boo.
Lock their doors when we were outside his building. You know, that sort of behavior kind of reflects more than you saying you support survivors, but you don't listen to what they need from you.
Hypocrisy in action.
A little bit.
But, like literally locking people out. Your constituents, locking your constituents
saying,
out.
oh, we don't want to talk to you guys. Or it just it's just that feeling of inaccessibility to who's supposed to represent us, but also when you have someone like Lauren Boebert willing to sit down and meet with them and hear them out, but their own representative wouldn't even open the door until it got attention. And then he sent
media piece,
a staffer who had no idea what was going on to meet with them.
That's reflects on the staffer a little bit. I think it's like, do your research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or he's like, I'll just pretend and not know, so then I can,
This is true. Weaponized ignorance is also a tactic.
I'm always skeptical of people.
Fair
It's like,
enough.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
It's like, you haven't been on the internet.
Yeah. You've not been anywhere. It's great. But yeah, they live here in the community. They want to mobilize in the community. So kind of further there'll be more on that, but if you don't already know, they do live here. They love this city, and they're bought in for sure. Of like, how do we make this space safer for women and children and men. So yeah, that's just what I'm gonna say. They walk out what you see, like when you see them in an interview, that's genuinely who they are to their core.
Authenticity, that matters in these spaces, is like doing our best to speak truth. And I really appreciate that you named that, because this isn't something we had mentioned I think when we met up recently. I don't have a solution, but I want to name it, because you got to name it first, right? Which is that with these stories that we see about abusers, right? I call them the Trump Epstein files.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then we just saw a congressman from California resign in disgrace because it turned out he was a predator. And I just want to name something we've talked about, which is that, and I even feel the kinship about it in a sense, which is that it is the survivors, it is the people with courage who usually end up pressuring for this accountability, because unfortunately in these very public instances, we could not rely on the systems that are there to protect us and quote unquote bring justice. Because with Congressman Swalwell, right, this person was known as a predator for years. And it's only until survivors like Virginia went extremely public at their own cost and detriment, obviously, that things started to shift in the right direction for justice. And so I am so forever grateful that I didn't suffer like physical abuse and damage. I'm going to say there's definitely psychological damage from my experience. And that's where I feel just very humbled to stand, I think, alongside with folks who take courage to force accountability in spaces where we have these conversations where we say the systems are there to foster justice or protect us, and there's a lot of evidence that they don't.
Right. And that I do want to speak to that. It's not easy to continue the fight. It's not just like, okay, cool, it's in court.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting on a measure I don't think people understand.
No.
And like walking alongside you and walking alongside Amanda and Sky and seeing like that, and it's not even for them, it's not even their battle, it's they're fighting for their sister's voice to continue to be heard, but over and over again is up to the people who were violated, victimized, whatever word you want to put to it, to continue fighting just to be heard and then believed, and then it's a whole nother battle to even try to pursue some kind of accountability and justice. What now?
Right, because in theory, the legal system, right, is about repairing a harm that occurred.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, what the harm that Virginia endured will never be repaired. And ultimately, to see her pass away in that manner, truly heartbreaking, because I can empathize with, again, the psychological element, and she experienced it on a worldwide scale. And with regard to these people who, okay, let's not get too tinfoil hat, but I'm going to say it is like
do it.
Shadow government, right?
Yes.
Like the courage that Virginia had to go up to these people and demand accountability for the harm that she endured, and knowing that they're very wealthy, very influential, like what we have seen revealed from the Trump Epstein files, like what a badass.
Yeah, I know I get stuck on that part of like knowing what could happen to you, because maybe you've seen it happen to someone else, or for her getting threats. I think it's in her book, but she talks about when she does decide to leave and she has space from them, and them being like,
I'm
we
scared
know where
to read the book. I think it'll fuck me up.
I think so. It's not a light or easy read. It took me a while to get through it, just because I would need to pause. And she's great. She even like addresses that. She's like, hey, this is heavy.
You
like,
should
let's
pause
take,
if you need
to.
let's
take a beat. So that I appreciate, but like threatening Sky when he was little to keep her silent.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even just her like own life at risk, and she knew that. It wasn't even just, oh, no one will believe me, but it's like they could do something to me, but they're also now sending me pictures saying like, we know where Sky goes to school, basically, because he's a bit younger than her,
horrifying.
and that's like her little brother she just loves so much, and
That's horrifying.
absolutely horrifying. And I think even with like bringing it back to your case, it may not be threats like that, but this is a small enough community that you can feel like that. I tinfoil hat again, right? Like walking around like, oh, now that I know, like they've been surveilled,
and not just me, like the scale of their surveillance.
Like, how do I feel safe walking around my city? And I don't think that will just go away. Even pursuing this, like when do you start feeling safe? Like,
yes,
insecure.
Thank you for naming that, because that's one of the number one things I struggled with directly in the aftermath, right, is feeling safe, and the impact, like the reason, again, the case, it's layered, right? There are many reasons why this is important, and one of them I would name is that it is very clear that the efforts of the police were an intimidation tactic. I've always described it as coming to my home, to arrest me, confiscating all my electronic devices, leaving me in a complete blackout, was very much sit down, shut up, little girl. Yeah. That's how
and it's worked. It's worked for them for most people. Often.
I heard from people who they, felt safe sharing with me that fucked up shit happened to me too from CSPD because of what I have done in the community and in speaking out. And I chose not to push back because I have kids. Yeah. I have a job that would suffer because of this. And eventually, it definitely shattered my life for a time, right? And there's even the truth is, I think I've mentioned this too, the spectacle of it. I think it was also, I guess whether they knew it intentionally or not, consciously or not, the spectacle of them doing that to me. I have neighbors who still, I think, look at me sideways because there were cops raiding my house.
And no matter what kind of end result, everyone's gonna come to their own conclusion. Oh yeah,
and if they didn't like me before, because I have very much been a vocal voice in our HOA when we've had terrible property management. HOAs. Yeah, fuck HOAs, so hard, abolish them. Which that's another podcast which we are working on. But yeah, there is a context to all of this, right? When you have the courage to be well, you thought I was going to shut up. Hell no. And you take the complete opposite of what, in my case, I would say was their intended outcome, which is to shut me the fuck up. I mean, I've mentioned that people talking to me about the case were damn, dude, I would have moved after that. And I still live in the same fucking place, right? And there's a level of privilege to that. It's I would move if I could.
But also, why do you have to move when you didn't do anything? And that's that's it, Jax. We have been programmed and trained for so long. So kind of even going back to, well, the police wouldn't have done that if there wasn't a reason. Maybe she's not guilty of everything, but she has to be guilty of something, or they wouldn't have done that in the first place. The conditioning of that, and having to deconstruct, no, they do shitty things to good people for no fucking reason other than their own agenda. And it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means you made them uncomfortable because your voice had power, and they were afraid people were going to listen to you, and it was going to reveal that we shouldn't be listening to them.
We did reveal things, and that's where, again, why I think the reaction from the police force here was very outsized toward me. And it's interesting because in doing so, we revealed more about their conduct. And I've always been appalled that the body cam that we got on my case, one of the things that hurt, right, was just to hear the police really hate us. And it's damn, dude, we're your neighbors. Actually, we're all on the same team because we just want people here to have housing. Do you have a problem with affordable housing, CSPD?
Well, who would they go and harass downtown if they don't have unhomed community members that they get to feel better than and more powerful than? And I don't think we'll get to a point soon where they understand how they've been trained to be we're supposed to police this, but they kind of like having them to police because it makes them feel big boy. I don't know. That's the only way I can describe it.
If you watch the body cam, I think what you're describing is what you see on there, because they were literally misogynistic and talking about one of their colleagues' large breasts, this big boy sort of thing that we're seeing with ICE, right?
So magnified what already exists in the spaces.
And just the ability to be able to question. Police are an extension of our government. Yeah. And so to be able to question what they say and push back on the social conditioning, nope, every time you hear from a police agency, it's nothing but the 100% truth. Big pause there, right? And I think the part B of that is being okay with questioning, right? One, allowing a question because we're in a democracy, and two, accepting that you are not infallible as a police agency and you will be held accountable, right? Which I'm excited will definitely have an episode to talk with someone who has been on the city's law enforcement, transparency, and now I think advisory commission.
Okay.
Because you may have heard right there, it looks like they may be dissolving that, which is chilling and speaks for itself.
Yes,
because to me that reinforces the idea of, well, police are infallible.
Yeah.
They're not. They're human beings as well. And we all have a duty to justice as far as I'm concerned. You know?
It's an interesting, I've been thinking about that more and more. Another community member that I think you may connect, who recently had charges dropped, again, kind of for the same thing of like standing in the street, directing traffic during a protest. Horrible, right?
Yeah,
let's spend a lot of resources on that. But yeah, it goes to, if I don't continuously get trained at my job, and my job is very low stakes, I'll be very honest about that.
That's nice. Less stress. Stress. Okay,
but
good.
I hold myself to a higher standard. I do get stressed because I expect more from me. And if I didn't continuously get training or reevaluate, am I doing this the most efficient way I can do this? Am I doing this? How am I showing up for my team? Am I an asshole to work with today because I'm in a bad mood? Like, that's small stuff on
like
a small scale.
Self-awareness.
That'd be nice. Yeah. And hey, you're here to protect and serve, supposedly. And we should constantly be evaluating with the changing climate, changing culture, your shifting population. Match it. Don't just think I'm wearing this uniform, so I am I'm a power.
I am other. I am above.
Yeah, I am above. No, like, you're here to protect and serve, and if you're not there to do that, then this isn't the job for you. It's a job also, right? When the Blue Lives Matter, like, no, you picked this position, and now you want me to what? Because you chose this career field, but you're also not choosing to be better. Because why? I just don't understand, and it's because it's not how I'm wired, and I have a lot of bias against them, so I know that I will acknowledge that. But it goes like, why wouldn't you want some oversight to be better at what you're doing if you're there to actually serve your community?
No, I love the question. I think that's exactly one of the top questions that should always be presented to them when they try to deny the existence of a mechanism of something like LETAC. It's like, well, you're so community oriented. What's wrong with involving community oversight in your processes? And, you know, we want something with teeth, which LETAC never had.
Yes,
so
that's it, because accountability is hard and it's painful.
Well, they took accountability out of their name as a committee or commission, right? And changed it to advisory for a reason. And prior to the case filing, when things were less formal, we went to LETAC's sessions and told them about what was happening to us. And it was really awkward because they couldn't do shit about it. And they heard this like very significant story about CSPD's conduct, and couldn't really engage, honestly. That's how I would describe it. And so on the thread of working for a progressive community, a better world, I have mentioned before that part of my theory of change, definitely not everybody's cup of tea, I totally understand why, was my commitment to serving in elected office, because for many reasons, one of them being that I really am pissed at seeing what I would describe as not enough people in elected office being public servants.
Absolutely.
Yes. Like that should be your North Star, not politics. And so, you know, part of why our kinship, right, was where our political perspectives are. And so I'm forever grateful that you supported the recent efforts of our campaign for County Commission 5.
Of course.
You were absolutely vital. And Mad, you should be clapping for her while you're listening, please. Please. What would you share from this experience? I mean, we had like the better part of like late 2025 to 26, and then we came up to that consequential March date of county assembly. And I want to name this, that Hannah has the distinction of being the only person who was holding my hand while they were reading the county assembly results that were absolutely brutal, which we have a little news tidbit to share there as well.
We
but
do.
I want to hear from you on this experience because you're an unaffiliated voter, and I feel like you really kind of like bit the bullet in a sense to like engage with what was a candidate who was running through the Democratic Party process locally.
It reinforced why I'm an unaffiliated voter. I'll say that's the first takeaway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this doesn't feel representative of my community in any way, and just to process what we went through, I like wrote down all these facts and figures just because that's how my brain.
That's why I like your brain. It's awesome.
And I was just, first of all, did you know like the GOP in Colorado is trying to prevent unaffiliated voters from voting in the primary?
It's a lawsuit currently. Is
yes,
that right?
And I'm like, so people voted for this, and now you're trying to go through the court system to
negate it.
Yeah. I was just reading an update on that, and I was like,
it is interesting.
Typical. You want unaffiliated voters come November. You desperately want them in November, but you do not want to welcome to the table anytime
when
before
you're
that.
Picking your ballot. Interesting. Who's on your ballot? This is what this is about.
Absolutely fascinating. And that's solidified through the process. Like when I'm always trying to educate and encourage people who are like, I don't vote. I'm like, well, let's
unpack.
Let's unpack why whether you vote or not, it's gonna impact you on a day to day. If you're not, especially if you're not voting local, it's still gonna impact you. It doesn't matter if you participate, but you should participate because it is gonna impact you. So that's kind of where I've been, and now I'm just like, all these bad feelings that I've had about
the skepticism,
right? And the cliche, like both sides, and I know all that, I feel all that, but it's still so important to get involved. And now that I'm like watching this unfold of like, we just got to get the right candidates on the ballot, and the general public will do their thing. Yeah. They want someone like you, Jax.
Thank you.
But having almost all white retired people deciding that is not it.
Yeah, it's not. And well, I can't, and we might be repeating here, folks, so sorry, but one of the things, like we're talking facts and figures, right? Part of my reflections have been like to that point where in the County Commission 5 Assembly for the Dems this March, we had the ability to have like a max number of like 207, we call them delegates, be involved in deciding who advances to the primary ballot. When it came to who actually showed up to county assembly, we had about half that number, 106. And then when you do the math further among 3 candidates, I have a feeling that most voters, if they understood that the 2 Dems for County Commission 5 who did, get advanced, only about 40 people are who put them on the ballot. Yeah. And when you talk about the numbers like that, you're like, gee, that just doesn't seem great.
No, and it's
representative again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was thinking more about this morning, just kind of like, I don't want to sound stupid on this podcast, but so I was like, do my homework. But it's unaccessible to people. Like if I think of my work schedule, hey, it's going to be this week, but you don't know which day your precinct.
The information will come eventually.
I have to request time off 5 weeks in advance.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So if you're telling me it's going to be one of these 3 days somewhere in the city at some time. Yeah. And I'm supposed to plan ahead, and I am so lucky that I have sick time and vacation time through work. Not everyone has that.
Correct.
I'm very fortunate that I also work for a company that's like, hey, if you wanted to dip out, you get that counts towards like your voting time.
Political engagement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they support
Go
that.
for
That's
it.
cool.
We'll let you do it. One of my coworkers did use that time to show up at caucus. And then when she was at caucus, she's like, I can't take that day off for assembly because the date for me to request that day off has passed. Right? So how am I, as a working person, supposed to show up?
Built for
and imagine
people,
if
right?
I had a kid. Where is childcare?
There were no children there, really. Because there's not an accommodation, and that's the hard part. Where it is a tension between party operations being totally volunteer, and the discretion that can be applied, county by county, because it's each county party making the determination of their operations. And there was some controversy in this last cycle that the choice was from the chair that it would be all in person. And, we brought up as a campaign, some of the concerns was like, well, hey, if you bill this as only in person, there are people who are going to like select to not participate because they need the accessibility.
Yep.
And then, there's some fine print about how if you do need accessibility, you can make a request after this date.
I didn't know that.
Before this date, but not after this date, sort of a thing. It was a bit convoluted for people.
Yeah.
And so if you miss the date to request accessibility, like virtually, that was the rule, right? Whereas other counties comparatively continue to do their operations virtually. And so, access matters. And as the Democratic Party, right, like
what are our
we
values?
say we have values, and it's funny because we're both unaffiliated, so I guess it's not a we.
No,
but,
no, thank you.
really.
Hard pass.
And here's where I'll add the news nugget, unless you wanted to share some of your notes from the experience.
Sorry, I was just like, what did I write? Because I wrote way too much. But no, this is more just about unaffiliated. But I guess my question there, if and you don't have to get too into it, but who's talking to the chair at that point who maybe, I don't know, hypothetically say they don't have children, maybe I don't know what their job situation looks like, maybe they're a straight white man, I don't know, who knows, saying, hey, think of other people's position of like immune compromised still, children,
one of
work.
Our committee members, right? That's exactly why she needed virtual access. I think I would answer you and say again, this is where the discretion applies to these positions of power and responsibility. And in this case, it's a volunteer one, right? Like technically the chair is elected from party members, but it's not a paid gig, right? And so,
well, then who's it for? Who's it for when you're not thinking of your community and saying it's all in person? Someone showed up, didn't know where to go. There was no signs. They didn't know what door to enter. Yeah. Like, who is this for?
I think that is $1 million question. Right. And who is this for? I don't know. I don't want to get any more lawsuits of severe emotional distress from petty white men in this community as I have before. So what I will say is, to me, it very much, not kind of even, links back to just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yep.
And how we need to elect leaders who are actually just holding themselves to a higher standard, because our systems don't necessarily afford that standard.
Yeah.
And who is it? So who is it for is in the eye of the beholder, I will even say. And we both noticed that there was a majority of elderly, retired white people who were participating in county assembly, which arguably is not entirely representative to me, especially the retired part.
Yeah, absolutely.
This committee campaign has always stood for the working class. And so, and here's the news nugget. To have folks on our team who are like, hell yeah, I'll be a delegate for you, but now I have to work. Now my kid has a sports tournament and I have to be there on county assembly day, and trying to go through the proxy process and having confidence in that. And so, Jax or EPCO actually was put in the position, I say, of filing a complaint because some of the things that we as a committee witnessed during the campaign process. And so I really encourage folks, it's on my Blue Sky, I'll link to it in the episode description here. And you can read the complaint for yourself, because it was important to us to make it part of public record for the public good, because it's not okay for the county party to violate neutrality among campaigns. It's not okay for the party chair to conduct or to have conduct violations. It's not okay to try to obfuscate our right to a ballot audit. And so we had to file a complaint to address these things. And that complaint is against the El Paso County Democratic Party. And, you know, we filed that complaint with the Colorado Democratic Party and followed the processes that their rules and procedures outline, which is, you know, for me, just the correspondence about it really reminded me of dealing with the white supremacist HOA property manager that I had to battle it out with for a few years. And that is obviously not a compliment. And so, Hannah, want to add anything about that? Because I'll just say one more element that's been, I'll say it, like pissing me off is that in these correspondence, like, I have a team behind me. Are we growing it? Yeah. Do we have reflections to be like, how does that team get more successful? Yeah. Okay. But the correspondence has been the state and county party being like, Jack's this, Jack's that. And I'm like, no, we're working on this as a group. So can you recognize that this is a campaign committee? Because like, that's the thing I think people don't think about as much about politics because it's such a shit show lately. But the idea, I would say, ideally in some ways, right, is that you have a campaign committee that is your community backing you. Are they giving you money? Okay, some of them are, and they're all giving something of value, like you did, Hannah. And so I've just resented that I feel like they have tried to like diminish the concerns by in the correspondence just addressing
making it just about you complaining versus you
like,
addressing like these are serious concerns.
Me as a representative of my campaign committee who we all fucking care like very deeply.
And you got a lot of feedback from several people. It wasn't just your observation alone, like speaking for me, you're speaking for me specifically because I was like, this, and this is what I noticed. Yeah. That it just felt gross to see it. And even going through, their correspondence with you and just trying to keep, like weighing your patience. They're just like, oh, eventually Jax will just give up. Yeah. And just let it be. And just let me do what I want.
Which is funny because when we talked recently about this, like, have they met me? Like, we jinxed each other.
Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? But the very thing that I think they hold against you is
seemingly, right?
Right. Is first of all, what makes you most appealing to anyone who meets you. And anytime I introduce them, like, I get it. I get it now. Because I'm like, just meet Jax, you'll get it. And they're like, yeah, that helps. I do. Yeah. Because, wow. Like, speaking truth to power. And just like, that's the thing they hold against you. And they also think somehow you're going to just stop doing that thing. Like, it just doesn't.
It's I'll do it with or without you. Yeah. Like, to me, I was like, Dem party, like we gave you a chance and you messed it up, right?
Yeah, and you just proved the point of and it was kind of with the unaffiliated thing. First of all, it makes up majority of voters in the district you were wanting to represent. Most of the people who were supporting you are unaffiliated, so they couldn't participate in assembly and caucus without changing their voter registration,
and you had to do it on a certain deadline.
Yeah, right? In which I even tried to do it so I could participate, and apparently it didn't happen.
What the fuck is even that?
Was meant to be because I really didn't. I was like,
you were holding your nose.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, these are the rules, and then after this, we're like, why are these the rules though?
Oh, I love that.
Why? What is this? And
who is this for?
Yeah. And in Colorado, we're lucky enough to say, I don't want to be affiliated with a party because I don't want to have to just be loyal to a party.
Right. It's not about an option all states have. It's not. Right?
We chose that. Yes. We wanted that. And that proves the passion, the engagement behind unaffiliated voters. It is not apathy. It is not disinterest. It is not a lack of caring. It is the opposite. It is conviction. I expect way more from my elected leaders, regardless of what letter sits behind an affiliation. And the median age of unaffiliated voters is significantly younger than Dems and Republicans. Why?
All very important
and
questions.
Why do you not want to engage with that group of people before November? And you just expect them to turn out, not only turn out, but you expect them to vote down the ballot, like locally, if you're not engaging with them before November, until you need them. And before then, they have to sit out. And that's the part that got me,
Kind of rude.
that really frustrated me. You can't sign petitions for candidates who run for a specific, so
right, if there's a candidate running in a party and they're collecting signatures, you have to be affiliated with their party to count as a signature.
So why are we doing that when the people spoke and said, I don't want to have to be affiliated with a party, but that doesn't mean I don't want to say in who represents me. Quite the opposite. And that is where like my biggest frustration comes. But like 66% of unaffiliated voters are between the ages of 18 and 40.
Wow.
60. You're missing out on the people who are going to have to live with whatever we do the longest. Like that's,
and so I'm like, sometimes I wonder if it's purposeful, right? In
probably
that regard,
status quo. Just
right?
keep it. We want you to think that you have two choices, but really your choice is it. Like, I know we're going to have to take small steps towards progress sometimes. I don't think it has to be that way. And I meet a lot of people like, well, we just want whoever could beat the Republican in Colorado Springs. And
It's
I'm
like, why we can do better? Why are we racing to the bottom?
Why are we aiming for slightly better instead of aiming for progress and then seeing where we land? I guess is more of where I'm at. And we could take it one step at a time, but you also give us candidates that are more like a 90-year-old shuffle, not a step. So what is this?
For real. Like, well, look, I'm saddened that the leading candidate in County Commission 5, I call them leading because they have the establishment backing them, like straight up. All the elected Dems here have donated to her, her endorsements, and I know her well. I used to be her aide. So when I hear her saying dumb shit, like, people just need to educate themselves out of economic inequity, right? This is I expect this perspective from a 70-year-old. They're not living the economic reality that those of us in our 30s, 40s, especially our 20s, right? And then when they say things, just absurd things, I actually heard her remark that young people don't want to own housing because that is like colonial and like what colonizers do. I was like, who's she
speaking to?
And why are you acting, you as a 70-year-old acting as someone speaking on behalf of young people, saying what you think we want? This is absurd.
Also, I've never seen either of your opponents in the community.
They're not.
I go to almost all the things I can go to that my work schedule allows, and I've never seen them anywhere.
No.
I'm like, do you exist outside of your house and
they
campaign
don't exist
events
outside politics?
So who are you? Who are you chatting with that you think doesn't want? Who wouldn't love to own a house, have a garden in their front yard, grow their own food,
the safety of all of
have the community, have a space if their parents need to move in when they're older.
Right.
Like, you think that young people are just so anarchic? Like, nope. We just don't want any of
young
it.
People are so radical.
No, the radical idea is that we want to afford it. Like, we want
right.
Or food being a right and not a privilege, or whatever that looks like. That's crazy to me that she says stuff like that.
It is, and unfortunately, like, there's not local media at that event where I heard her say that, right? Like, I was there because she was my opponent and I wanted to know, right?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the other candidate in this race, you know, them being part of the neutrality complaint and being so ignorant enough to text me and out themselves as having been involved in this neutrality violation was stunning to me.
The irony of him playing the political game and thinking he's such a politician versus like a public servant, and being so ill-equipped to like speak to an opponent in a way that, am I above board here? Should I not? That
Stunning.
What?
Read the complaint, please.
Man.
Yeah. Well, and let's dig in with the time we have left here. Unaffiliated voters. One of the things that I have said, one of the biggest takeaways is I should have pursued an unaffiliated candidacy because truly that would have been most representative. That's the largest number of voters in the County Commission District 5.
Yeah.
And so how that plays out here in Colorado, it's 2 million people statewide.
It is.
And in this whole county, it's about 262,500 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love, you already went off, but do it again, please, because people and for people in the back to hear, and if they weren't paying attention the first time, is that we have to challenge this societal conditioning around two-party system.
Yes.
We actually have the opportunity to do that here in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And we definitely, if you haven't heard it already, it is bullshit that unaffiliated voters are politically disengaged and apathetic. Maybe some of them are, but more so, Hannah, say it again. What, most of the people you might be involved in community work with, are they unaffiliated, for example?
Yes, the people who are showing up and delivering groceries, who are organizing protests, whether that's your cup of tea or not, who are all the organizers. Yes, they are
people taking action in this community.
Yes, the people who care, the general strike members who just want to say, hey, we need to buy from each other, rely on each other.
We need to focus on mutual aid because that builds a strong community.
Yes, because we have learned neither party is going to really be there for us at the end of the day, because
sadly, it sure
they have to stay loyal to the party line if they want to be reelected. Is their or keep their paychecks coming in.
And let's link that to the sad reality that, okay, well, why keep with the party line? Because money. Because if you are a more corporate centrist, the way our society is structured is you're likely much more to tap into deep pockets. And that's another takeaway for me. We always held a small donor strategy.
Yeah.
And frankly, the workload that takes, the time that takes, that's something that Hannah and I will be working on in the future. As we're excited. It sounds crazy, but I love it, is let's organize around being unaffiliated voters, because actually, again, as unaffiliated, you could arguably say we are the most politically passionate because we have a conviction that has led us to today. Look, I just really can't fuck with the two-party system right now when I see how much damage it's doing.
Yeah, and when I see the same things that I am accusing one side of doing, I see the other side. Ooh. Or what my biggest problem with the Dems is this, let's just keep the old guard because we do a system here about tenure, and that is inferior. Because who is that speaking to? How is Chuck Schumer your voice?
It's reinforcing gerontocracy.
And also, you learned your lesson. We all learned the lesson the very, very hard way when Biden was oh, he's old. We should do something about that. And then in Congress, we're like,
way possible.
Let's keep doing it. That is okay, fine. Don't learn your lesson. But yes, unaffiliated voters, I think, are saying, hey, I don't want to be boxed in, and I don't want a candidate who maybe they agree with me when we talk over here at an event, but they're not allowed to speak freely in public. They're not allowed to say fuck ICE, abolish ICE. They don't feel like they're allowed to say no funds to Israel, and not just because of Netanyahu. He's just the face of the problem. Because we had a candidate who's like, well, once Bibi's gone, I'm like, not good enough. I need more from you. It's not okay. And you're missing the mark. But it doesn't feel they can say more than that publicly because of party lines. Because also the more money you have, the more likely you are to win, which is bullshit. And we know that that's going back to your small donor thing. But I think, yes, let's empower, let's educate, let's give unaffiliated voters an avenue to feel like, hey, I actually have my voice. It's being heard finally. I get to decide who goes on the ballot, not just show up in November and then they're knocking on my door because now they're desperate for my vote.
That part. And foreshadowing here, just so you know, dear listeners, unaffiliated candidates can join your ballot. What that looks like is them gathering signatures. And so that's why organizing as unaffiliated, if we really want to pursue a future where we don't have to be beholden to this two-party system, we're exploring this road, and we're inviting all our unaffiliated friends in El Paso County to join with us. So,
yes.
Anything else you might add, Hannah? Like, what's good in your life? Providing a little bit of balance. We save it for the end, so maybe we should put it in the middle. But we like to also practice, gratitude and reflecting on what we do have, because we have talked about some hard truths here.
Yeah,
is the job of the show. The way I approach it, but what's good in the hood?
What's good? This year is starting to pick up and feel like maybe my year a little bit. So I'm excited. I just feel like the engagement with people is there, and it's giving me a lot of hope just as we move forward through this year. But what's good is work's going well. That hasn't for a while.
We like to
it's
pay our bills.
Well
hey,
now.
we like to live. Yeah.
And then I'm into making bird baths, and that brings me joy. I know that is Erica makes fun because we'll be on walks. I'm like, that's a good rock. That's a good rock. And she's like, you're so weird. Like, she's looking at plants, and I'm like, I want that.
And you're looking at rocks.
Yeah.
What a cute couple.
But it's so simple. But it's stemmed from, we're doing a community garden in our front yard, and we're meeting our neighbors like on a deeper level, who are like, hey, we always walk by your yard, and it's just engaging. And that's just been so exciting to actually meet our neighbors who just kind of walk by us, and now they're like, hey, what are you doing there? And we're like, hey, bring your scraps over, compost with us. And we have several neighbors who just dump their scraps in our bin, and then we put it in our pile. And I love
that. I would love to be chill with my neighbors. I think, we probably mentioned it on the show, but that's a part of like a healing that we can collectively experience, to be connected and like positive with each other. That's not to say that tough things don't come up. Having a commitment to be kind and connected to each other.
And we have several neighbors with their very MAGA flag house, but like we've been engaging with them in a new way, and we know that makes a difference. We think like gardening is the way to pull community in and radicalize them. To be honest, like that is our goal. And so I'm making them a bird bath, and like that is a step, because there is this tension of like, do they just think we're sisters? Do they just but now they know, and then they're
friends,
right? Oh, is it the same person? Sharing. Like I can't tell if it's two different women living in that house. We're starting to look like, I don't know, but
couples do, yeah.
But it's like these little things of like, we can bond over gardening because it's not political, it's not an extreme idea. It's something so beautiful, and getting back into earth, it's healing.
That is
and
beautiful.
So the reason I brought up the bird baths and like looking for it, because like that's my in.
I love it. It's people. An open door.
We have such different views,
clearly,
but we're starting to build that friendship with them.
I love that, because it's a recognition of one another's humanity, right? Which, man, that's where we, unfortunately, with the rage baiting and the nasty noise, like
us versus them.
It erases people's humanity, and that's not a good thing. So thank you for, providing a balance on the other side of that. Like, I maybe will get to a point where I will talk to a MAGA neighbor
safely, find a way to
safely,
and reminding him we have more in common than we do. Like it's cliche, us, so to speak, it's cliche, but it is true.
No, I mean, cliches have a kernel of truth, right? Like we all bleed red, actually, like but I was like, unless there's like oxygen issues, right? But we are humans and we bleed. So I love that. I'm so glad to hear that. That's a definitely very wonderful answer for what's good in life. I'm happy to hear it. Yes. Well, then I will use this opportunity. Then we'll wrap it up here right on time. Episodes of Justice with Jax are recorded as a member of the Studio 809 Podcast Collective at the Next Us Community co-working space in downtown Colorado Springs. Remember to ask yourself 2 questions. Who's telling your story? And how are you being the change you want to see in the world today? This is Justice with Jax, signing off.